Here's a few thoughts on Duel Links and what I'm feeling with the game right now. So, I kind of spoke at the beginning of the stream, I'm not sure what I want to play, not sure what I want to do. And there's a reason for that. And the first thing that I want to do is talk about my King of Games push last month. So, last month we were playing a bunch of stuff on stream. Obviously, we wanted to try, a bunch of different things, see what worked, what didn't work. We wanted to try the new cards. We tried some Neptune stuff, tried some Fire Fist stuff, just see what worked. Played some Ancient Gears as well, because, Ancient Gears are pretty good. And we were kind of hovering around Legend 1, Legend 2, back and forth. Weren't really making a ton of progress. So, off stream, I decided, it's getting towards the end of the month, and it's a short month too, because February only has 28 days. That's how calendars work. And I wanted to hit King of Games. So, I realized towards the end, I said, why is it that if all I'm worried about right now is winning, that I'm not just playing the best thing that I could be playing? Doesn't make sense, does it? So I started doing that. And if you want to know what I ended up hitting King of Games with, this should shock nobody, but I'm going to talk about the deck a little bit. So, Kowakimeru, because they are absurd. So, I like using balance with the deck, and there's a very big reason for this. A, it means you always know you're going to have at least one Diamond Core or Iron Core in your hand, which is important because the deck kind of revolves around it. I very slightly edited somebody's list that I took from online. Obviously, this is nothing, revolutionary. But they were running 2 Maximus with 1 Ice. And I understand why people are playing Ice. There's a lot of special summons in the game right now. But my thought is, if I'm just trying to kill my opponent on the first turn of the game, Ice is actually a pretty slow card. And I wasn't drawing Maximus as often as I wanted to. And as soon as I took out the Ice for a Maximus, the deck just didn't lose. And I mean that seriously, in that I was in Legend 2, I won 5 games in a row to get to Legend 3, and then immediately won another 5 in a row to get to King of Games. That was a 10-game win streak. That was 10-0 to go from Legend 2 to King of Games with this exact list. There's a couple of reasons for this. I will talk about the specifics to this version, and then I'll talk in a general sense. So specifically in this version, with running balance and running 3 Canadia, 3 Floodgate, it means that going first is not an immediate death sentence. Because if I'm able to, say, in the mirror match, which is obviously one of the hardest things if you're going first, if I'm able to immediately Canadia or Floodgate their Urnite, yes, they might still be able to Maximus me, but they don't kill me, and then I can come back on the next turn to kill them, which happened multiple times during my run. It just gives you flexibility so that going first does not immediately lose you the game. So, let's talk about that, because that is where, to me, the biggest problem is right now in Duel Links. Unless you are playing spellbooks, which actually that deck wants to go first most of the time, because they want to just be able to go, Spellbook of Secrets with Spellbook Magician, Tribute off for Silent Magician, set up Fate, and just stop whatever it is you're doing. Unless you're spellbooks, going first usually means you're dead. Why does it usually mean you're dead? Because if you're facing Kowakimeru, they can more often than not kill you on their first turn if they're able to attack. So if they're going second, they use Diamond Core, which means you can't destroy their monsters. They blow up something up for free with Maximus. With Urnite, they get to summon either Sandman or Wall, depending which one is more relevant in the matchup, and stop whatever it is you might be able to do in response. And yeah, just kill you dead. So, other than that, other popular decks, Ancient Gears, obviously, it's a little bit harder for them, but can still, kill you on their first turn if they're going second. Vampires can certainly kill you in one turn. The only deck that's not necessarily a first turn kill that's popular right now that's good is Buster Blader. But Buster Blader basically just aims to set up a game state where you don't get to play the game. So that's cool. So basically, all of our top decks revolve around doing one of two things. If it's Kowakimeru, Ancient Gear, Vampire, they basically just say, I'm going to blow your stuff up and kill you in one turn. Generally my first turn. Or you're playing something like Spellbooks or Buster Blader, where the goal of my deck is you don't get to play this game of YuGiOh. I'm the only one playing. I set up a game state where you can't do anything. Those are all your top decks right now. And to me, that is a problem. I think that is a very poor play experience for most players. Imagine if you're, I don't want to say a brand new player, because you're a brand new player, you're probably not playing against all these decks on the ladder. But let's say you're like a mid-level player, you know, you can get to, say, Platinum, you know, but you don't have all the cards. You know, you don't have a huge, expansive collection. When every single game, your deck that, say, needs 2 or 3 turns to set up and try to win, and all you're doing is playing against decks that either kill you immediately or set up a game state where your deck doesn't function anymore, and that's just game after game, that's going to feel really bad for you. And it's going to make it so that you don't really want to play anymore. So for me, I can get some enjoyment out of it because A, fortunately I do have the ability to build most top decks so I can kind of play around with different stuff. And B, I'm also fortunate in that I do have a small community, you know, all of you guys, where you guys help make the game fun for me. And that means a lot. And I say that both as a thank you to, you know, all my viewers, all my community out there, but also as a kind of an explanation that helps me a lot. If it weren't for that, I'm not saying that I wouldn't be playing Duel Links. I would, but probably not nearly as much, and particularly right now. And it's really something that I would like to see Konami address, though I don't expect it, because to me, there's only a couple ways that really make sense to address the problem. Because that's what I identify as the problem, is that basically, in one way or another, almost every top deck's goal is to prevent the opponent from playing. That's basically it. Now, that's not to say there shouldn't be any interaction between people. I'm not saying it should be like Hearthstone where, you know, there's almost no way of interacting with your opponent. Although, to be fair, I haven't played Hearthstone in a while, so maybe that's changed. But, where, you know, it's basically I do my thing and then it's your turn and you do your thing. There should be interaction. There should be ways that I can interact with what my opponent is doing. But not to the point where it's I interact by telling you, you don't get to play, also I win, and it's turn 2. I don't think that's healthy. So there's a few ways to work on this. I do think Koikimeru is actually the biggest offender of this because it is the most consistent deck in just saying, you don't get to do anything to me and I win and it's my first turn. I think Diamond Core was an insane addition to the game because everything else that you see here, every other card was already out and Koikimeru was basically nowhere to be seen. Diamond Core turned the deck from sometimes it does things to probably best deck in the game. Particularly best deck for ladder, for sure. So that was a problem. So adding cards like that just make a deck suddenly just win on turn 1 consistently, I think they need to do a better job of identifying cards like that and saying, hey, maybe we don't need those in our game. Because they do have the luxury, I want to say, of picking and choosing what cards go in what box. So they have years and years and years of Yu-Gi-Oh cards to choose from in deciding what to release. Obviously, we get some newer stuff, we get some older stuff, which is cool. But I do feel like I don't know that there is a balance team for Duel Links. Maybe there is, I don't know, but I feel like there isn't. There probably isn't. Other games like this that are, you know, whether it be Hearthstone or other things, they have balance teams. Because they're creating original cards. I realize Duel Links is not creating original cards. We're just using cards from the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. But I don't know that there's anyone that's spending a whole lot of time saying, if we add this card in, how is it going to affect our game? I don't know if that's really happening. If it's not, it should be. And if it is, maybe get some new people on that team because they're not doing a great job. Honestly, personal opinion. But creating decks like this, I do think is a problem. Now, the other way that you could go about this, that I know there's basically no chance of them doing, is I would not mind seeing Starting Life going up to 8,000. Make us play an actual game. I understand Duel Links is supposed to be faster and simpler than the regular TCG. That's why we only have 3 monster card zones, 3 spell and trap zones, 4,000 life points, only a 5-card extra deck. I get that that is the point. But you can keep all the other stuff and just raise the life total. You remember that 1 month where they experimented with raising the life total to 5,000? Like, there was a reason for that. And I don't know what their internal data was regarding that experiment, but I honestly feel like that's not even far enough at this point. We have so many different ways of bringing out just 3,000 attack monsters and blowing up your stuff and just killing you, that 4,000 life to me really is not enough if you want to actually play. Now, if your goal is games should not extend past turn 5 or turn 6 ever, then okay, keep it the way it is. You're doing a great job. Everything's perfect. But to me, I don't think that's a great way to play the game. I think you want to be able to, you know, actually feel like you're playing a game where your decisions matter, where it's not just, did I draw everything I need to kill my opponent on my first turn, or did I not and they killed me? Versus decisions that I make throughout the course of the game matter. My decisions versus my opponent's decision. And yes, sometimes your opponent is just going to draw better than you did, and they're going to win because of it. And you might feel like there's nothing you can do. But right now, that happens very frequently. And sometimes it's not even about who drew better, it's about which way did the coin flip. Are you going first or second? Congratulations, that decides the outcome. That feels really, really bad to me. And I think that is a mistake. So that is the reason why right now it's a little harder for me to feel the drive to, cool, I want to, you know, test out all these new decks, I want to experiment with stuff, because that's usually where I derive a lot of my joy of the game from, is, you know, let's try some cool new stuff, let's try some new decks, you know, let's see what I can come up with on my own, I'll check out videos from other content creators, see what they came up with, and try stuff. And the number of times where, like, and this is not to say anything negative about other content creators, because obviously they're doing way more than I am, so I'm not in any way trying to speak badly of them. But the number of times where I'll see a video and, like, they'll play a deck and it'll look really cool, and I'm like, oh wow, that's awesome, I hadn't thought of, like, that particular interaction or whatever it is. That looks really cool. Hey, I have the cards to put that deck together, let me try it. And then I just lose every single game, or close to it, you know, just lose a ton of games. And I'm like, how is it? And like, it's partially, you know, maybe I'm not playing the deck perfectly because I just started with it. But a lot of times, like, it just feels like I have no options. Like, the deck just doesn't do anything. And I'm like, how are they putting these videos together of all these great things that they're doing, but I'm just sitting here playing this deck, and I feel like I can't do anything, and I'm just losing over and over again. And there's 2 reasons for that, mainly. One, you may notice that a lot of these videos do not show in between the duels, where it shows what rank they're playing in, because one time somebody, I think, slipped up and accidentally did, and it was like Plat 1, which obviously is a much different experience than trying to play it, even in High Plat, you know, or Legend. I'd say King of Games, but at King of Games, sometimes people just start messing around with random stuff again because there's no penalty for losing. So there's that. And then 2, it's... I've actually seen some funny stuff lately on some videos where, like, people will have their Twitch chat in the videos, and they'll be making this video for YouTube, and they'll be recording it while they're streaming, and Twitch chat will be like, you know, fake news, YouTube, you know, this deck lost like 20 times, don't waste your gems on it, you know, whatever, because they'll play a deck for like 30 games, they'll win 3 or 4 of those 30, and then those are the ones that they'll put into a YouTube video. Now, again, I don't blame the content creators for that. I'm not saying that, you know, oh, go boycott. You know, no. It is actually, it almost needs to happen that way. Because there's, you know, usually not a ton of new decks at any given time that can actually be competitive that people aren't already aware of. It's not impossible. It does happen. But it's not happening all the time. And the way content creation is right now, you need to, if you're really trying to do it full time, you need to be putting out new stuff every day. There's not this brand new, amazingly competitive deck every single day that nobody's ever heard of, right? So if you're going to put out new videos all the time, you kind of have to do things like that. So I don't blame the content creators one bit, but the point is that those kinds of decks sometimes should have some merit to them. If it takes 3 or 4 turns to, like, set up and you want to do some cool stuff, yeah, I'm not saying that should have, you know, an 80% win rate, but it shouldn't be like 10% either, you know? And that's the state of the game that we're in right now. Is you either, within the first few turns of the game, win, or make it so that your opponent can't win. And just by setting up your own stuff. And that's the problem that I have. So yeah, obviously just increased 8,000 life points doesn't solve everything immediately. There's other things to take into consideration as well. You have to consider the implications of, well, does a 20-card deck still make sense? Does stall become too powerful? There's other things to think about. I'm not saying that there is one change that fixes everything. But I do feel that, for me personally, a state of the game where that's the case, where the game is almost always decided within the first turn or two, sometimes even before the game starts, because it's just, here's the flip of the coin, oh, you went first, and your opponent has the things they need to kill you in turn one, oh well, there was never any way for you to win, sorry. And that happens a lot. To me, that feels really bad. Now again, I don't know what Konami intends exactly for the game. They might want games to be over by turn 3 consistently. That might be what they want. And if it is, then I guess things are fine, and I'm just one person complaining, and it doesn't really matter. But if that's not necessarily the goal, if the goal is to actually have a game where you feel like your decisions matter, where you can outsmart your opponent, where you can play better than them, and that makes a difference in your wins and losses, then I don't think the current state of the game is getting us there. That's not to say that it never happens. Even when I was playing Kowakimaru, I actually had a few games where I did feel like I outplayed my opponent, where I didn't have the perfect hand, I didn't have everything I wanted, and I did feel like I made some decisions that changed a potential loss to a win. I actually had one game where I won by deck out. Believe it or not, this deck that's designed to OTK, I actually couldn't kill them, but I recognized early enough what my win condition was, and so I played it a certain way. I knew how many monsters I could have on the field, what cards I needed to keep in my hand, what cards of theirs I needed to stop, and I actually won by a deck out, which this deck is not designed to do by any means. So, there's certainly, I'm not saying there's no room for outplaying your opponent, but it's not the norm. So yeah, as I said, there's different ways to look at it, different ways to potentially fix it. But yeah, I don't think just every once in a while deciding to semi-limit a card or to limit a card is the fix for everything. I think it's better than nothing, and I think there's certainly times where it does make sense and it helps. But just saying, oh, well, this one deck type is too strong, so we're going to limit one of the cards in the deck, like they could limit Diamond Core tomorrow to 1 or semi-limit it to 2, and hope that that changes something. Yeah, it'll change something, but it's more of a band-aid solution. It doesn't really address what I feel are more systemic issues. So that's it. That's the end of my rant. It's just something that I really wanted to discuss with you guys.